Welcome to the reading vlog for Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. I am pretty sure this is actually pronounced Norrell, although I pronounce this multiple ways throughout the vlog, so excuse my terrible pronunciation skills. I am reading this as part of a buddy read that Ross and Laura from Hardy's Books were hosting. I will have their YouTube channel linked. They have videos that they put out every single week for the chapters that we were supposed to read in the buddy read that week. And for this vlog, you will be getting my unfiltered thoughts as I'm reading through the story. I don't go over every single chapter in detail the way they do over on the videos on Hardy Books. I just basically turn on the camera whenever I have something to say. So with that, let's get into my first experience, my very first read of anything that Susanna Clarke has written, and my first read of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. Also, this is a full spoiler vlog. If I read a chapter and I want to talk about that chapter, I talk about it in full spoilers. You have been warned. Go away now if you've not read Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. Or if you're curious, and maybe I'll say something that piqued your interest even more, to read it. But there might be spoilers. Do with that information what you will. Okay, so I finished chapter 1 of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, and I have a few thoughts. First off, the narrative voice in the writing is so strong, and I love it. I don't know exactly what to call it. I kind of want to say it's like sassy or sarcastic, but that's not really the case. But it is kind of like amusing because he seems to be poking fun at the society of magician gentlemen and like their properness and whatever, and I find all of that entertaining. It's like, yeah, I'm enjoying the strong narrative voice. A couple other things. Mr. Norrell's library, oh my gosh, I love the sound of it. It sounds magical, and I am here for magical libraries, and we have like books of magic. I am so here for it. Is Mr. Norrell's destroying books though? Because what did Mr. Sedungus see on his way out, where the book was laying there and all the pages were removed? Like, is he destroying books? Because I have questions and I need answers. And then thirdly, at the beginning, this is, I guess, spoiler for chapter 1, but in this, we are obviously leading up to no one can do magic, and except there's going to be 2 magicians that can come along and do magic. And this book is called Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, so you kind of know as soon as you learn that information, you're like, oh, I know who's going to bring magic back. And then by the end of the chapter, we find out that Mr. Norrell can do magic, and I'm like, yes, let's go. So chapter 1 started out strong. We'll see. Hopefully the book can continue this way. Okay, I am on chapter 8. And Mr. Norrell is summoning a fairy so that way he can resurrect Lady Pole, because there's definitely nothing that can go wrong with resurrecting the dead. It seems like a very important thing that's going to have effects on the story. I guess I will see as I continue reading the book whether or not that's true. But this just kind of feels like an important chapter. And the fairy that Mr. Norrell summons is the man with the thistledown hair, which seems like a force of disruption. Like, even whenever he shows up, he basically talks to Mr. Norrell like he is this like puny little guy. He's like, oh, why am I listening to you? I could go talk to more important magicians, whatever. So Mr. Norrell is like a little unsure what to do with this, but he agrees to the magician's terms and resurrects Lady Pole. I don't know. I'm really curious to see where this goes. Also, this is the picture we get of the man with the thistledown hair in the story, which would be our fairy. And it's such an interesting illustration. I am enjoying the illustrations throughout the book. I'm still reading, but there's nothing in the story that is making me feel like I need to pick up my camera and talk about it. The book's moving very slowly, and I don't really know where it's going. And I'm realizing the characters are entertaining, but I'm not loving any of them. And I don't know, the books, I mean, it's interesting, kind of. I don't know, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, there's just nothing that I feel like I have to talk about. I still feel like the bringing the fairy into the world and resurrecting Lady Pole was important, but it's honestly not, I guess, playing into the story as much as I expected it to. I don't know. We'll see where it goes. I am now about halfway through Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, and I really don't know what to make of this book. It's so long, and I'm enjoying it when I'm reading it. I am reading the book and I'm listening to the audiobook, so I'm doing both. Sometimes I'm immersion reading, where I'm reading the book and reading and listening to the audio and following along at the same time. Other times I just listen to the audio or just read the book. But this book is so long. This book, like, there's so many times where we just kind of seem to like go off on side tangents, or we take an entire chapter where we're following like a side character's backstory and then explain how the character weaves into the story. And like, I'm finding it entertaining, and I'm finding the footnotes entertaining. There was like a super long footnote, and I found the story of the footnote entertaining, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know how any of this like weaves into the story. And I'm not really sure what the direction of the story is. Like, where are we going? There's none of the characters that I particularly love. I am really enjoying like the story whenever I read it. So if I'm listening to the audio or I'm reading the book, I'm enjoying the story when I'm reading it or listening to it. But whenever I put the story down, there's not much that's making me come back and say, I need to find out what happens next. I need to, like, I want to know, I want to pick up that story again. That's not really there for me with this book. And the thing that's making me pick up this book again is the fact that I'm buddy reading this. I honestly, and like, okay, I said I had almost over 17 hours left of the audiobook. I was looking at that and going, how much time am I dedicating to a story if I'm not absolutely loving it, you know? And the characters are entertaining, but I'm not loving the characters either. And I'm just like not really sure where this is going. It's such it's such a uniquely told story. I just don't know what to make of it. I'm not disliking it to the point that I would like DNF this and never pick it up again, but I just am kind of wondering, maybe if I wasn't buddy reading it, I would consider at least putting it down and coming back after some time, because I'm just like not that invested in the story right now. But I'm buddy reading it. I'm going to keep reading. We will see. Hopefully, maybe it'll get more interesting. Or I've heard a lot of people say like the ending of this book is like so good. And I'm kind of curious. So we will see. I will say the way the story is being told, it does make the world feel very real, feel very like there's so much depth. You feel the expanse of this world. You feel that there's so much that's not even being told in this. There's so much going on, so the characters feel alive and real. It feels like the history of magic is actually a thing, you know? So as far as that goes, it's a unique way to tell a story, but that is definitely a pro to the way the story is being told. The con is then I'm not as connected to the characters. This book is such a slow burn. I don't know when it happened, but I'm invested in these characters' lives now. Like, I want to know what happens next. I want to know what they're going to do next. And I'm not exactly sure when it happened. But here I am. I am through chapter 44, which, oh my gosh. Okay, we will get there. First off, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell have split up over their differences in magic, basically. Their different philosophies on magic. And then we get these chapters focusing on Jonathan Strange's wife, Arabella. And oh my gosh. So we have chapter 43 and 44. In chapter 43, they're like, Arabella is wandering outside in the rain, and Jonathan Strange is like, no, she's here. I saw her this morning when I got out of bed or whatever, and not realizing that Arabella was not around. And they, by the end of the chapter, Arabella shows back up in the house, soaking wet, wearing black, which Jonathan Strange was like, she never wears black because I don't like black on her. And then, so she shows up, and what Jonathan Strange says to her, I don't know where the end of the chapter went. I thought it was marking it, but maybe it wasn't. So she shows up, and Jonathan Strange says, good God, Arabella, what have you got on? That's how he greets his wife that they've been searching for and is missing. She shows up soaking wet in a black dress, and that's what he says to her. Oh my gosh. And then we have an extremely short chapter 44, which is basically explaining like what happened with Arabella since she's come back. And at the very end, it's like only 2 pages long. And at the very end, we have one sentence that's like, on the 3rd day, she died. That's it. That's it. What? Okay, that's... I care about these characters now. I am invested in this story. I don't know what happened. Here we are. Here is an illustration of Arabella wandering in the stormy weather, just to make you more sad. Jonathan Strange has published his book, The History and Practice of English Magic, and Mr. Norrell is being super petty about it. And whenever people purchase the book and they take it home with them, the book disappears. And they're not able to read it because the book just keeps disappearing, and they keep going back to the bookshop and then complaining and saying the bookshop person is a thief. And basically, Mr. Norrell is causing all of Jonathan Strange's books to disappear so no one can read it. And it's so petty. But this is what I'm loving about this book. I am just loving the character interactions, and I'm enjoying it. I love it. So I'm on chapter 55. I just finished chapter 55, and I am not okay. What? Yeah. Okay. So Jonathan Strange... He finally summoned the man with the thistledown hair, which like, yeah. And then he went to Lost Hope. And then not only did he go to Lost Hope, he saw Arabella. He saw Arabella at the dance. Okay, and I'm like super excited and also like really annoyed with Lady Pole for like trying to pull Arabella away from Jonathan Strange, and like, oh my gosh. And then Lady Pole is asking like, well, did you come to help us? Nope. Well, okay, then we're just not going to talk to you. It's a whole thing. Okay. Someone has to. Like, maybe Jonathan Strange is going to get everyone out of Lost Hope. Someone has to, right? Right? Okay, right? That's where I am. I'm going to keep reading. I need to know what happens. Okay, now that I have gotten over screaming about chapter 55, I also want to talk about one of the quotes in chapter 55. I absolutely love this quote, and this is talking about the people who are cursed by fairies in this world, people who are cursed to dance in Lost Hope every night. But I think this quote also works as a way to describe depression. Like, reading it, I was like, I feel like we're talking about more than just the magical people in this world. So here goes. There are people in this world, he began, whose lives are nothing but a burden to them. A black veil stands between them and the world. They are utterly alone. They are like shadows in the night, shut off from joy and love and all the gentle human emotions, unable to give comfort to each other. Their days are full of nothing but darkness and misery and solitude. I love it. I love it. I feel like it's so powerful. And yeah, I love it. I have finished Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. Act 3 is definitely like when you start Act 3, you just want to read it until the end of the book. I loved it. I loved this book. It's definitely one of those books that you have to trust the process. And in the middle of the book, I was not maybe trusting the process as much as I should. This is not the first time that I have come to the end of a book, and during the middle part, I was like, I don't know if I like this book. I don't know about this book. Like, maybe it's just okay. And then I get to the end of the book and I'm like, I loved it. It's a new favorite. I think if I reread this book, I would love it the whole way through, because I know I'm now in love with the characters. I know where the story's going, and it would just be like revisiting these characters and getting to see them on their journey. I loved it. The ending was great. It was sad. It was hopeful. It was everything. It was all of the emotions. I don't know how to wrap up my thoughts and feelings on this book. But if you somehow made it this far into the video and have not read this book yet, when you're in the middle of it and it's maybe kind of dragging, trust the process, because it gets there. It at least did for me. I went from, I'm not really sure about this, to I am so invested in these characters' lives. And it's kind of sad that, like, this 800-page book is over. And I don't get to spend more time with the characters other than rereading it, which I already want to do. I feel like this would be a book that I enjoy so much more on a reread, and I am looking forward to rereading Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. If you want more in-depth discussions, we did have a discussion over on Hardy's Books channel. I will link that in the description of this video. All of us who were buddy reading it got together and discussed our thoughts on Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, and it was so much fun. I am so thankful for this buddy read and for something that pushed me to get through this book. If you've read this book, chat with me about it in the comments, and I hope to see you in another video. Happy reading!